Hi, hello! I'm Hiroko. I'm a big fan of Japanese culture and literature. I will introduce Japanese cultural points I know on this channel. I want to show you how interesting Japanese culture is. In my first series of my video, I will introduce a very famous novel, Snow Country, which was written by Kawabata Yasunari in 1935. This novel is famous for winning the Nobel Prize in 1968. Now today, I will try to explain how Japanese culture was in the early 20th century. Japan had been a closed country until 1868, politically, geographically, and culturally. Before opening the country, Japan was governed by the Tokugawa shogunate, which started to rule in 1603. Authorities who were responsible for opening the country in 1868 decided to make our nation modern. Japan diligently learned a lot from Western countries such as the UK, Germany, France, and the USA. Lafcadio Hearn, who is also famous as Koizumi Yakumo, immigrated to Japan from America in 1890 and married a Japanese woman. Actually, her family name was Koizumi. Hearn married into her family, thus acquiring the Japanese surname Koizumi, while also accepting the given name of Yakumo. He collected, analyzed, and interpreted many Japanese folk tales. Hearn also wrote about how Japanese people lived in the Meiji era, which was from 1868 to 1912. Hearn's book, Glimpses of Unfamiliar Japan, was published in 1894. In his book, he focused on the diligence of ordinary Japanese people and how they studied Western subjects meticulously in their schools. To quote Lafcadio Hearn, "It is no small surprise to observe how botany, geology, and other sciences are daily taught even in this remotest part of old Japan. Plant physiology and the nature of vegetable tissues are studied under excellent microscopes and in their relations to chemistry. And at regular intervals, the instructor leads his classes into the country to illustrate the lessons of the term by examples taken from the flora of their native place. Agriculture, taught by a graduate of the famous agricultural school at Sapporo, is practically illustrated upon farms, purchased and maintained by the schools for purely educational ends. Each series of lessons in geology is supplemented by visits to the mountains above the lake or to tremendous cliffs of the coast, where the students are taught to familiarize themselves with forms of stratification and the visible history of rocks. The basin of the lake and the country about Matsue is physiographically studied after the plans of instruction laid down in Huxley's excellent manual. Natural history, too, is taught according to the latest and best methods, and with the help of the microscope. The results of such teaching are sometimes surprising. I know of one student, a lad of only 16, who voluntarily collected and classified more than 200 varieties of marine plants for a Tokyo professor. Another, a youth of 17, wrote down for me in my notebook without a work of reference at hand, and, as I afterwards discovered, almost without an omission or error, a scientific list of the butterflies to be found in the neighborhood of the city. After struggling to modernize the country, Japan was somehow able to slowly assimilate into the new society. In the Meiji era, important railway companies were established and rail networks were designed, and many universities were built all over the country too. In the field of culture, people enjoyed Western arts, literature, plays, music, science, and academics all at once. Especially in the Taisho era from 1912 until 1926, democracy and culture flourished. A political movement called Taisho democracy started with the Rice Riots in 1918. Japan sent troops to Siberia to confront the Russian Revolution in 1917. Japanese merchants disliked selling rice at ordinary prices. They waited until the price of rice escalated. The demand for rice was expected to increase because Japan entered the war. For that reason, people could neither eat rice nor feed their children. People rushed to rice shops and destroyed warehouses. Many people marched in protest against merchants, who brought, stored, and hoarded rice all over the country before selling it at inflated prices. Sometimes the rice shops were burned down by angry customers who were almost always women who needed to feed their children. These protests were called the Japanese Rice Riots of 1918. On the other hand, at the same time, people enjoyed listening to music on records. Nihon, Japan, Columbia Records was established in 1928, and even radio programs were popular in 1925. I think it was a dawn of humanity in Japan. Kawabata Yasunari was born in 1899. When the Rice Riots occurred in 1918, he was 19 years old. What did he listen to on the radio? How did he feel? When the Shimizu Tunnel was completed in 1929, he was 30 years old. The long tunnel might be a symbol of science and technology among civilians at that time. In front of the modern tunnel, people were excited for democracy and Western culture. However, beyond the mountains, there was an old lifestyle. The Shimizu Tunnel, which was 9.7 kilometers long through the rugged Echigo mountain range, took 10 years to complete after work started in 1922. The main character of Snow Country, whose name is Shimamura, traveled through time, from modern society through the long tunnel to the past 50 years before. The beginning of Snow Country. A train comes out of the long tunnel into the snow country. The earth lay white under the night sky. The train pulls up to a signal stop. Before modernization, people had to use ships when they traveled around their lands or had to go long distances on foot in the mountains. The long tunnel made people feel another world, maybe taking them into a dream world. And trains were symbolized by the newest technology. It must have been like a spaceship for young Kawabata. Komako, who Shimamura met and had an unusually strange relationship with, was a symbol of nostalgia for the older Tokugawa time. In this story, there are two main characters, Shimamura, The male character is the protagonist. He is a writer. The author Kawabata made this story as his own personal memoir. The other main character is female Komako. She is a geisha. Kawabata personally used this word. Generally speaking, geisha don't provide sexual favors. However, in Snow Country, they do have several male clients. This is an important question. What kind of persons are geisha? I will explain geisha in another video. Please check it later. Although Shimamura has a family in Tokyo, he stayed in the Snow Country to meet with young geisha Komako. One day, Shimamura went to Echigo province, an area known for its high mountains, and therefore mountain climbing and hiking. After walking in mountains for several days, he arrived in Echigo Yuzawa. Here, there were many inns and ski resorts. Shimamura longed for companionship and the services of an understanding woman. On this day, however, there weren't any available women, as because of parties, women who provided sexual favors had already been accounted for. Therefore, Komako, who was still a teenage woman and a geisha in training, heard and took time to chat with him. Shimamura abandoned his thoughts of having sexual relations with her. However, he asked for Komako's assistance in finding another woman. Komako became very angry after hearing his words. "It's so rude," she said. And then, after time had passed, and more subtle conversation had been undertaken, over the span of a few days, their love affair began. After that time, Shimamura sometimes returned to visit her. However, no more than one occasion he stayed in Echigo Yuzawa for almost a month or two. Kawabata wrote about how they separated and why Shimamura stopped seeing Komako. In my next video, I want to discuss about the relationship between the nature of the Snow Country and human mind. See you!